Well, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday night live Bible study, and apparently it looks like that I'm lagging. So, I don't know how this is streaming for y'all. I had some issues with this thing earlier today. The internet's checking out fine, but you know what? Uh, it might just be feedback from me. But Lisa, good to see you here. Sherry, she's here, and I see a comment that Miss Ann Brother Tommy's here. So if y'all are here, welcome. Sorry we could not be there Sunday because the problem we had going on from Saturday night into Sunday morning, we lost power, out of power all night long. Bad enough, we spent a lot of money trying to get the truck repaired. We had all that food we had to try to save, and I had to get the generator hooked up and this and that, and power didn't come back on to almost near lunchtime. But you know, we surely missed it, but I think it was best because I also had a sinus infection, I think, and stuff got in my chest. My throat was burning real bad. So I probably would have made a lot of people sick. Yeah, I think it's Facebook because I've been noticing a lot of weird things with Facebook. Facebook is trying to dump users to switch over to their new meta, and they're getting rid of everything. They're deleting stuff, removing things. I'm finding out stuff's being removed that I did not know was removed. And I think, they're intentionally doing that because they want to get you mad and say, well, you know what? You can come to Meta. Meta's a lot more better to get rid of. So they're trying to agitate us. I think that's what's going on. They're fixing to shut, in my opinion, they're trying to shut Facebook down. So, with that, our Bible lesson is for the night as we just finished up the imperative of love. Now we're going to get into what I call in the next several verses we're going to cover in the next several weeks is going to be the outworking of love. And that's what these particular passages are covering, the outworking of love. So with that, there is going to be verse 16 all the way to verse 23. So with that, we're in First John chapter 3, verse 16 to 23, and starting with verse 16. By this that we know love, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And verse 17 says, but whoever has this world's goods and see his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? In verse 18, which says, my little children, let us not love in word or in tongue. But here we go, folks. But indeed, let's repeat that. My little children, let us not love in word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. And verse 19 says, and by this we know that we are of truth and shall assure our hearts before him. Verse 20 and 21, for if our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Verse 21 says, beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence towards God. And verse 22, and whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do those things which are pleasing to his sight. And verse 23, which says, and this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another as he gave us commandment. Well, let me tell you what, those are some real powerful verses. I'm looking forward to covering those because I've been doing some study. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I'm having some more free time. So I'm trying to prep myself for the following weeks of these lessons. So our lesson tonight is verse 16. And I looked at this one for a long time, folks. I mean, for 21 years, I had given my life over to the Lord. And if you hear what I said, I gave my life over to him. It's kind of talking a little bit about what we all done. We surrendered ourselves to them, but there's a little more going on here because, again, this passage is really telling us, and I love it. It's saying, because by this that we know love, because he laid down his life for us, for you. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. Boy, when I was looking at this, I said, man, how can I get this started but not turn this into almost a 2-hour lesson? Because there's a lot going on here and a lot John is trying to cover. So I had to try to condense this into almost a 30-minute format. Well, what is John really trying to tell us in verse 16? I think it's kind of obvious what we're reading and what we see on the screen. But when John is going into more great detail, he is talking about a specific type of love and what that love does. Now, in case you're wondering, the Bible does mention there are many types of love mentioned in the Bible. I'm going to cover these real quick to give you a little short explanation of what these loves are. So, the many types of love that's mentioned in the Bible, they are, and forgive me if I say it wrong, eros, storge, philia, and agape. That's the four. And I think there's really one more reference, the fifth one. I have to look it up and I'll add it to it later. But these are the four types, fifth types of love that the Bible talks about. And that's why when you read your passages, I don't suggest it for everybody, but if you try to look at the Greek, they break down the different types of meaning of love in different passages. What this love means, that love means, this love means, this love. I may add this next week, depends on how short I can keep into verse 17. So we might look at it. But right now, that's what John is really talking about. Four types of love. But what type of love is he talking about in verse 16? You might be thinking, okay, well, the type of love that John is talking about in verse 16 is agape love. And what this love is, this is what the definition of agape love. Agape is what we call the fourth word of love. It's described a love that loves without changing. It is a self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment. Let's repeat this again. The agape love is described as a love that is without changing, is a self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment. Basically, it is a love that's so great that can be given to an unlovable or an unappealing person. It is a love that loves even when it is rejected. And folks, agape love gives and loves because it wants to. It does not demand repayment from the love given. So when we give agape love to a person, and basically, if you want to shorten it up, it's what we call really unconditional love. We're not expecting nothing out of it. We're not even asking for repayment. We're doing it because we love Christ. And because of that love, we give it to others. And this is what agape love does. It does not demand nothing from no one. It does not demand repayment from love. It does not demand nothing. Love is given freely, and it gives because it loves. It does not love in order to receive. So, in a way, many people who give this type of agape love does not seek self-recognition. And you may run across a lot of people that look, I'm not in it for the recognition. I'm not in it to point this thing to me. I don't want to be recognized for this, whatever. We give that kind of love freely to God, to others, people we meet, brothers and sisters. And yes, folks, a true test, your witness, your testimony is giving that agape love to people who don't deserve it. That's a test. Love. I'm speaking for myself, folks. When you really must love someone, even though you may not want nothing to do with them, you do so because Christ loved them. And if he loved them, then we must do the same. We might not like them. We might not like what they say. We might not like it when they come against us. But you know what? We give it because we're not demanding nothing. We do it because we love God. Now, when you look at this passage of this agape love, and knowing this, and here's what I was looking at, two different angles in this passage here. We see two lessons we can learn from this passage. 1 John chapter 3, verse 16. And the first lesson is, look at the words, how it starts off when John says this. By this, we know love. And the second lesson that we can get from this is, here's more important, because he laid down his life for us, as we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So the first part of this lesson here, which I just mentioned here, that every Christian, and I believe all of us can say we do. I do. I think y'all can say the same thing. Every Christian knows John chapter 3, verse 16. Don't we all? I do. That's almost basically one of my passages that I learned. But basically, you can see that passage almost in every sporting event. Everybody's holding up a sign, John 3:16. I kept saying that a lot, and I had to look it up, find out, well, what does that mean? And I read it, and I learned it, and I know what it means. But how many of us right now pay much attention to our passage tonight? We know the big book of John chapter 3, verse 16, but how many of us really pays attention to this passage tonight in 1 John chapter 3, verse 16? And that kind of hit me a little bit. That kind of, whoa. I had not given that particular passage a lot of thought. I heard it used a lot. I heard it used in church. I heard a brother told me, well, if you love me, you're supposed to lay down your life for me, and he kind of did it in the argument, but you know what? He was taking it out of content. But how many of us really pays attention to 1 John chapter 3, verse 16? Write it down. I suggest after this lesson, I'm breaking it down for you, go take a look at it and study it even more. But it is even more wonderful, my friends, to share that experience by obeying 1 John chapter 3, verse 16. So what he is saying here, and which I will tell you, if Christ laid down his life for us, here we go, we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And my friends, look, real love isn't merely felt as an inward feeling. It is also shown by demonstration. See, when you show that love to others, sometimes you may not feel like it. You may wonder why people come against you. You may not understand what's going on. But it's a humbling experience for me because I've been learning this lately. I've been showing true love to people, even though sometimes they may not deserve it, or I'm trying to demonstrate true love to show them I'm truly following Christ and not personal feelings. But see, that's why I'm saying this is shown by demonstration. And really, it's an ultimate demonstration. In fact, if you think about it, when Jesus was on the cross, he was given that agape love, even though they did to him what they did. Wow. And what John is really teaching us in this passage, my friends, that a Christian love involves sacrifice and service. And Christ did not simply talk about his love, folks. He didn't talk about it. He proved it to you and I. Look up Romans chapter 5, verse 6 and 10. Christ proved his love for the Father. He proved his love for us. You see, Jesus was not merely killed as a martyr. He willingly, He did not fight. He did not resist. He did not, call down a legion of angels. He didn't say, no, you can't take me this, that, or whatever. He gave up his life willingly, knowing that he was going to that cross. And he laid down his life. You can look in the big book of John, chapter 10, verse 11 through 18, chapter 15, verse 13. And my friends, we all know from a human perspective that self-preservation is basically what we call the law of physical life. Sometimes, when we're about ready to be put to death or we're being tortured and all that, sometimes the human body wants to try to preserve itself. But what Jesus was doing in his agape love was self-sacrifice. And friends, that is the first law of spiritual life. So that's why, again, this is the first part of this lesson of verse 16. So now the second lesson, where he's following up the first lesson. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. Now, I don't know about you. And I'm being honest right here, my friends, to you right now. And those who's watching those videos, I hope you made it to this point. But I'm being honest with you right now. My life right now is not even up to that level yet. Can we honestly say all of us is at that level? Can we? Do you know many people who would put their lives on the line for you? Now, I ain't bragging, but you know what, folks? I love God a lot. 100%. But if it came down to it where I had to put my life down on the line for my wife too, yes, I would. But like you say, if you ask the question, if you had to put down your life for Jesus Christ right now, would you? And don't answer that yes very quick, because sometimes when you're put in that situation, you might end up saying a different answer. You see, that's why I've been reading this book, When Faith is Forbidden. 40 days, well, saying actually 40 days from the front lines of persecuted Christians in the world. This is really called The Voice of the Martyrs. And I started reading this book. I'm telling you right now, it's been humbling me because, again, folks, look, we don't know what persecution is all about yet. These folks so far, I'm about almost halfway through it. These people are dying for Jesus Christ. Been tortured, murdered. I mean, in inhumane ways, but they're not wavering from their faith of Jesus Christ. And I'm reading these stories after story after story, and I'm like, am I at the level that these folks are? Now, these are really folks in foreign countries. These are not in the United States. But they are willingly laying down their lives for Jesus Christ. Wow. How many of you know that would do that for you? And how many of us would be willing to put our lives on the line for someone else? See, that's what's happening, I feel, to me in the United States. We do not see this level, or we do not see what I call this spirit manifested as it should be. We're seeing it in foreign countries, so why are we not seeing it here? Folks, this is the real proof that God loves us. He gave his son to die for you and I. So the question would be again, are you willing to do the same? And this is the standard of true. He is our example. And John says that therefore that we should be willing to lay down our lives for the brethren if it comes down to it. Because really, isn't it the death of Jesus Christ in itself that is the ultimate demonstration of love? When you look at the cross, what do you think about when you look at the cross? Seeing me and studying all this right now and getting into this area here, now that when I'm looking at the cross, I see love. I'm not seeing the cross. I'm not seeing the brutal crucifixion. I'm not seeing the death of Jesus Christ. I'm seeing the love that he demonstrated for us. Because we know in Romans, yet while we were sinners, that Christ died for us. You see, it is the death of Jesus together with what it does for us that shows us this perfect love. So, bottom line, my friends, look, from this lesson, what I gather, and I hope that you're getting it too, until you and I come up to that level, like these folks are, like what Jesus did, look, I'm not putting nobody down. I'm talking about myself too. If we have not come up to that level yet, we're not exhibiting the love that we should have for the brethren. If we love one another, we should be willing to lay down our lives for one another. And look, I've been seeing this too much. I've been seeing us fighting with each other, tearing each other down, trying to control each other, trying to control things, trying to go against people and churches and everything else, speaking badly about pastors, brothers and sisters, when we should be thinking about what kind of love we should be showing. We should be thinking about, am I willing to lay down my life for that sister or for that brother out of agape love? And that hit me because basically what John is telling us, he's telling us to do the exact same thing that Christ did. Actually, if you look at it a little further in this passage, John is telling us to do the same thing as we're fixing to read in Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Look at it. Look what it says. That's the kind of love we should be demonstrating. And I slip on that. I do. I'm falling short on that a little bit. Yes, I do. But I'm trying to work on it better. But what this passage is telling us, what John gives reference to, he says this, when he points us to Philippians. This is what we are looking at. This is what Paul was trying to tell the people about the love. He was trying to tell people what Jesus did for us. He was really trying to tell what it takes for us to be like Christ. And he says this. That's why John gives reference to Paul's notes. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of the mind, let each esteem others better than himself. You see that? John is really telling us what Paul has already been telling us, which Christ actually did, because Christ was lifting us up while he put himself below us. He lifted us up. And we need to be doing the same. We need to be lifting up other brothers and sisters better than ourselves. Because in fact, verse 4 wraps it up right there and says, let each of you look out not only for his own interests. Here we go. But also for the interests of others. Share across that passage a lot. I should have wrote it down because it just now hit me. And she uses it a lot because John was saying this, John the Baptist, when he was saying that I must decrease in order for him to increase. Folks, let me tell you something right now, as this just told us. We must be looking out for the interests of others. We must be demonstrating the agape love. We must be willing to lay down our lives. We must decrease for others to increase. So, The question I pose to you tonight: are you willing to lay down your life for Him or for others? Are you? Are you willing? Chew on that. Think about it. Meditate on it. Search your heart and ask the Holy Spirit to help you and say to yourself, am I willing? Amen. God bless y'all. May you go in peace. Y'all take care of each other. Miss Ann, Brother Tommy, look forward to seeing y'all Sunday. Sure missed that crawfish because I had my mind set on eating me a big mess of crawfish. But I had to settle for cold sandwiches. But again, there'll be another time. But I love y'all. Y'all take care of each other. Everyone else, take care of others too. See y'all next week. Same place, same time. Go in peace.